Clay, Liam O'Neill, saw him Jack scoop him up outside Central Station, take him away for a shit movie. That's for real. Well, welcome back to Fog Entertainment. It's a movie review for Rebel Moon, A Child of Fire. Jax Teller didn't die at the end of Sons. Turns out they kidnapped him and put him on a one man.
Jackson Teller might not have died at the end of Sons of Anarchy, but we all wish we died watching Rebel Moon because this film wasn't good. It's got a lot of negative reviews, a lot of negative critics, and I think after seeing it in the flesh, we can determine that those negative reviews are justified. This was not a good movie. I could tell from the beginning I wasn't going to like it, and I didn't like it. It didn't get any better. I mean, it was cool seeing Charlie Hunnam. I'm always going to not enjoy anything he's in. I'm always going to be intrigued to see anything that he's in, but unfortunately Charlie Hunnam has this really bad knack of just participating in shit films and movies and series after SOA, so it's disappointing.
It is. It's not the only guy.
King Arthur was okay, I guess, but
Corey Stoll was in this. You've got Anthony Hopkins, among other people. It's not like it was the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, they weren't scraping these D-list actors here, you know. There were some notable people in this movie, but the movie itself sucked. Like common movies, the storyline just goes out the window. I don't feel like there's any good storyline. The dialogue's all boring. All they care about is the visuals and the special effects, and look at the nice visual shots, and look at the spacecrafts flying through the air. I mean, who gives a shit about that? See if we're not interested, see if we're not intrigued, see if we're not buying into the story and buying into the characters. Why would we care about any visual effects? I don't get that.
Yeah, it just feels like a really watered down, I don't even like Star Wars, right? But at least you can say, well, there's some good things about it. This has got nothing. This just feels like light, Star Wars light, doesn't it? Even some of the terms that we're using just sounded like Star Wars.
Yeah, it was like a post-apocalyptic Star Wars, and it just wasn't good. So basically, the bad guys, the motherland, they come to the fucking place, the village that Cora lives on. They kill Corey Stroll because, or whatever, what's his name in the series?
Don't know what his name in the series is, but I know he's
like the village chief leader, but he's not willing to share food, basically, because they don't really have a lot. So they speak to some other guy who thinks that they could perhaps share some food, and they like this answer, so they decide to kill Corey because he didn't want to share them food. Then they take over and they make unrealistic demands, but Corey's dead now, and the village people feel like they need to.
Maybe if we work hard, they'll need us.
Yeah, and they'll know that our hard work means we should live. So they're basically going to work themselves as like slaves so they don't get killed. But
the harder you work, the more they would just demand of you.
Yeah, then one night we have a bunch of guys. By the way, they all seem to be white, so
except the one Asian guy who was totally not for anything they were doing. Why is he even in their army?
Anyway,
plot purposes.
Long story short, one night they take one of the village girls. Looks like they're going to rape her. There's about at least 10 of them here, and Cora appears with a little axe and tells them to let her go. They kind of laugh at her, but then she proceeds to take them all down. And she kills them all, 10 on 1. Some of the most unrealistic shit I've ever seen here. It just doesn't make sense for a female to do this, or anybody to do this. I mean, You could almost buy it in a Steven Seagal movie because he's that arrogant that he thinks he should be beating up 10 people. But, I mean, realistically, this just shouldn't be happening. But it did happen, and you could tell there was a theme with this movie. It was your woke kind of movie where they got to push the women as warriors. It's like all the women in this movie were strong warriors, and all the men were pathetic. It's like the guy that basically agrees to give the motherhood the deal in the first place. He was like a total wimp. He had to get saved several times. I mean, after Cora kills all these people, she takes him and they go and try and recruit people. And there's one scene in a bar where he gets sexually assaulted by this mutant.
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. And he has to be saved by Cora. I mean, here's a dude that is getting fucking molested by some other dude or whatever creature,
Anthony Hawkins,
and he has to be saved by Cora, who just completely manhandles Anthony Hopkins. It's holy crap, this guy was all grabbing your genitals, and this guy just was a little wimp, couldn't do anything about it. Then we get introduced to Charlie Hunnam. He shoots Jimmy, aka Anthony Hopkins, in the head, introduces himself to Cora, says that basically he's a mercenary and that he will join their fight. Now, they don't really have a lot of money to pay him. They say,
I will join your fight, Cora.
"Well, join your fight." All they can pay him is crops, but he says he's a mercenary, so maybe once the war is over, there'll be more money for him. Then they go on a scouting mission to try and scout some warriors that they can help join the fight.
It's time to see you charming lads what puts bread on your table.
So we get introduced to some characters. I didn't really care for any of them. We get some backstories. We have some guy that's like trying to ride a big bird, and if he can ride it, he's allowed to be freed from captivity. We get introduced to some former disgraced like general, some black guy who was like covered in, I don't know, fucking dust or something, and they gave him a shower.
General Titus.
General Titus, yes, and he joins their side. Then some crazy Asian woman who fought this big spider-like creature. Apparently, she was like a samurai. A little bit stereotyping there, I guess. Samurai, Asian.
We've also got Cary Elwes in this, who of course was in Saw, and he's in quite a lot of other things. He was King of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
is he the fish?
I'm not too sure if he was the fish, but the fish got killed. Then they go to this like land where it's like, I don't know, tribal warriors or whatever, and the main man who with his sister decides to recruit some people to go and help fight in the war. His sister stays behind, but the guy says, "Who's with me?" And of course, it's some woman with a fucking skinhead who steps up looking like she doesn't know what gender she is, probably confused. I'm confused watching this. She stands up and she's, "We will fight for you." So again, it's like you're recruiting, you're adding more of these like women type fighters. And I mean, if you just look at history or if you look at real life, it's just not very realistic. But of course, in these movies, they push it down that the women are the strong, good fighting warrior like characters, and the men are like the weak backstabbers. And speaking of backstabbing, Charlie Hunnam, Kai, backstabs them all. Turns out he was trying to he can get a better price by turning them into the Motherhood than he can fighting alongside them. So he captures them. The Motherhood meet them in some like sort of fucking space land. I don't even know where this was. It was some platforms everywhere, and
yeah, I can't really describe what it was.
Spaceships, platforms.
The sad thing is,
like a Call of Duty map for, I don't know, COD zombies in space or something.
Moon. Once he did this, it was all over for Kai, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then we get the Admiral comes in. The Admiral guy comes in and basically says, "Right, well, I'm going to make you pay for your sins. You're coming with me," kind of deal. Then Gunnar, the wimpy guy, gets told he has to put down Cora. This guy's a wimp, like I said. He had to be defended by Cora the entire movie. At the start, he got the village chief killed by basically being a little bitch and bending the knee to the Admiral. But then he decides to show us one, like, I don't know, heroic moment of the movie, and he just, like, turns around, overpowers Charlie Hunnam, and shoots him. And Charlie Hunnam's dead.
Yeah, and it's like Charlie Hunnam's character was like the only good guy who was white, because I think even Gunnar was he wasn't exactly white. I mean, judging by the actor, I wouldn't go that far. And it's just like, what? So we can't even have anybody who's white now good. And then the one person who was in the Motherland or Motherhood who was non-white turned out to be like good and actually didn't like the actions of the thing he had become and joined. Just incredibly woke, and it's like, was this Charlie Hunnam dead? All this hype for this movie with him?
Yeah, of course he's dead. He got shot in the fucking head.
Nah, he's did an interview and he said he's still alive.
Aye, that's just to try and get us to tune in.
What, just me and you?
Aye, he's no coming back. Then a big brawl ensues, and we have, what is his name? I believe it is Darian Bloodaxe. So yeah, the guy, the warrior guy, he runs up a spaceship. He slams like this big javelin kind of, I don't know, spear into the spaceship. Kills the guy who's piloting the spaceship, but the pilot guy manages to shoot off a couple of rounds. It kills him, and then the skinheaded woman, I don't know her name, but the woman.
Is it his sister?
No, his sister stayed behind.
I believe it's Harmada.
It might be Harmada. She screams, she gives out this almighty scream because this guy is dead, and it's like, of course they killed the guy, and now they have this like they have this mini army being led by this Harmada chick who looks like a fucking dude anyway.
It's almost like she found out that Trump won the 2024 election.
Yeah, that's what it did seem like. And then Cora battles Admiral the admiral on this like platform, and she just overpowers him and destroys him in a fight, breaks his arm, and then she hits him with this like stick thingy that he's been hitting people with. His teeth fly out and he falls off. He falls off the platform. Then Cora and General Titus, shake hands and like, oh, we continue the fight. Shite. And then basically Admiral gets taken back by his people and they put him in a machine to keep him alive, even though he fell about 200 feet. How could he possibly be alive? But he is alive. Maybe that gives Charlie Hunnam, a chance. And then Admiral he meets his boss, and it turns out that his boss is actually Cora's father, and he sends Admiral on a mission in part 2 to go back and get Cora and bring her to him, because she used to be a part of the Motherhood, and I guess she either left or got kicked out or whatnot. But that's the film. That's it. Just a lot of shite, if you ask me.
Yep. We've buried Charlie Hunnam's Belfast accent, but if you take him and his accent out this movie, I'm scared to think what I would rate it. So I'm going to give it a 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10, is that fair? A 1 out of 10? A 1 out of 10?
1 out of 10 for part 1.
Yeah, you know what? I'll give it I'll give it a 2. And that's a generous 2.
It's woke. And like you said, the story's just... Like, think how much other movies get in 2 hours and 15, and this movie felt like it did nothing.
It was hard to follow. It constantly changed.
I would go as far as saying,
at times, like, it felt like you weren't watching the same movie. See
with some of the actors they had at their disposal here, this is like a pretty star-studded cast if you used it right.
True, but I'm not surprised it sucked, because this is what current movies are like. I couldn't tell you last time I watched a movie and thought, wow, that's great. The storyline takes a back seat now. It's all about visual effects and special effects and that kind of shit.
Yeah. Netflix movie, guys, this wouldn't have done well. It's a top 10 currently in the UK.
It's currently in cinemas as well, so it's...
Oh, is it in the cinema?
Yeah, it's... If you want, you can pay to go and sit and watch this with some popcorn. I wouldn't recommend it.
I wish Charlie Hunnam well in his future endeavours, but this just didn't do it for me. So it's a 1.5 out of 10 from us, guys. Realistically, we're not going to watch part 2 because, we weren't even going to watch part 1 with him in it. So why the fuck am I going to watch part 2 with him dead?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it. So, till next time. Peace.